All right. Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining me for this week's Mindful Moments session. We will be talking about, in this week's Mindful Moments session, we will be talking about the RAIN technique and how it is used to handle our emotions. It is an honor to be able to host these mindfulness sessions for you all, and let's get started. So, this week we are going to be talking about the mindful quality of insight in relation to facing our emotional trouble spots. And insight is the aha moment of clarity. Mindful awareness helps us see the cause and effect in everything that we do, and this in turn helps us develop wisdom about how things work. So, when facing emotional trouble spots, one helpful tip is to see emotions as separate from you and learn to stay with them with kind attention. So, we're going to be talking about the RAIN technique and how we can use this to help us handle our hard emotions or emotional trouble spots. RAIN is an acronym, and R stands for recognize. Recognize how you feel and name the emotion. This helps us identify what we are feeling and better understand the present situation. A stands for allow. Allow yourself to feel that emotion and don't run away from it. Don't try to suppress it or maybe turn to a distraction because we want to allow ourselves to understand what we are experiencing. And often, especially when we're in the midst of a problem, the solution isn't to run away or turn to a distraction, but allow ourselves to face whatever we're experiencing. I stands for investigate with kindness. So investigate the situation. What what led to you landing in this emotional trouble spot? And how might you get out of this situation? How might you solve this problem? Or how might you make yourself feel better? Investigate with a kind mindset. And N stands for nurture. So, nurturing ourselves, having that self compassion to attend and befriend our feelings. So, an important part of the RAIN technique in relation with mindfulness is recognizing that these emotions are separate from you and that you have control over your emotions. So, once you allow yourself to be the driver or the controller of the situation, then it will be easier to see the different causes and effects of all the different things that happen in our life that may seem like obstacles. And the important thing in the RAIN technique is to be actively seeking, recognizing what you're feeling, investigating with kindness, and trying to find something that might get you out of your emotional trouble spot. So, being active in the whole process and not just expecting the situation to get better somehow. So here are some additional tips for that help us face our emotional trouble spots better. One thing I've realized is that when we are in a difficult emotional time, it's easier to create space when we're overwhelmed that will help us kind of take a minute to pause and reflect. So, practicing awareness of what being overwhelmed feels like and directing our attention to the breath to calm the mind and body. And another thing is to engage in difficult conversations, particularly if your emotional trouble spot involves someone else. So, opening yourself up to working with those strong emotions that will surface when you have this difficult conversation and trying to bring empathy to both sides of the situation and understand deeply what's going on with you and maybe someone else instead of trying to jump to immediate conclusions. So, before we begin our mindful practice, I want us all to take 3 deep breaths, breathing in and breathing out. Breathing in and breathing out. Breathing in and breathing out. All right, enjoy. All right. So now that we have finished our weekly mindful practice, we're going to move on to the discussion questions. So, how might we be able to use self compassion to face our emotional troubles? How does a cause and effect mindset help when we are in our emotional trouble spots? And what are some additional ways to prevent emotions from controlling us? So, thinking about these different questions. All right, so how might we be able to use self compassion to face emotional troubles? As part of the RAIN technique that we discussed earlier, the N stand for nurture. And I think that this really relates to self compassion since we're trying to be attentive and also nurturing towards what we're feeling and trying to implement that mindset of self compassion to approach ourselves instead of maybe being a bit negative towards ourselves. So, self compassion is definitely a really big thing, especially when we're in the midst of an emotional trouble spot. And it's an important thing to cultivate. So, how does a cause and effect mindset help? The cause and effect mindset is really what mindfulness teaches us to do, especially when we're facing our emotions, rather they be good or bad. The cause and effect mindset helps us trace the effect which we may be feeling currently in the present, such as an emotional trouble spot, back to the cause. So we're actively seeking for the cause of what put us in the situation, which helps us kind of be in that mindset of looking towards the solution instead of going deeper and deeper into the rabbit hole and trying to undermine ourselves. So, that cause and effect mindset helps us look more objectively at the situation that we're in and helps us kind of go back to the cause and perhaps implement our solution. What are some additional ways to prevent emotions from controlling you? Well, besides the really important things that we talked about, self compassion and having that cause and effect mindset, I think similarly along those lines is having a positive mindset. So, even if we are in a difficult situation, one thing that I found helpful is, especially when I'm in a difficult situation, is to speak to yourself, whether it be out loud or maybe just silently, and say words that might encourage you to kind of resolve your emotional trouble spot or find a better way out of your emotional trouble spot. So, for example, I might say when I'm in a difficult situation, I could say, um, "Jean, you are strong. You are resilient. You can overcome this." Even though sometimes our brain is telling us to focus on the negative aspect, and it can be very easy to fall down that line. But an important thing here, as I've emphasized earlier, is to really actively seek for that cause or that positive kind of side. All right, so we are going to end this session with a quote that relates to what we were talking about this week. A moment's insight is sometimes worth a life's experience. So this means that, to me, that you don't have to go through a whole life or decades to realize or understand some really important lessons. Sometimes all it takes is a moment to change your thoughts, and it those moments can be very impactful. All right. Thank you all so much for joining me for today's Mindful Moments session. I hope you all enjoyed it, and feel free to leave any comments or any feedback. I would be more than happy to receive some feedback. And I hope you all have a wonderful, mindful week ahead of you.